Welcome back to Bammerhab, Season 4, Episode 6. Bammerhab is a podcast about one writer's attempt to dig deeper into God's Word by exploring the Greek and Hebrew words inside of it. I'm SDG Morgan, and I'll be your tour guide around this dig. And today's episode is another interview, this time with author and blogger Ann Kennedy, who chose the Greek phrase ahiskones kataphronizas. And it is from Hebrews 12:2, which is, "Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God." Ahiskones is the Greek word for shame. It's used that way in a lot of texts, including Homer. And ahiskone, shame, is used frequently in Greek thought, both as the idea of dishonor and shame, but it also has the connotation of disfigurement or an unappealing unattractiveness. The goal of much Greek culture was to avoid this ahiskones shame at all cost. Kataphronizas, or scorning, is a word that's a little trickier to translate, but scorn is not such a bad translation. The Greek word comes from the root kata, meaning down, descending, or against, and phroneo, which means mind. You can see echoes of this Greek word in phrenology, which is a 19th century pseudoscience trying to divine the shape of the mind by the shape of a skull. But phroneo also means diaphragm in Greek, because this isn't the mind like the psyche, the soul. This is the mind sort of like the will and how you bend your mind like a muscle. It's the mind muscle, if you will. So the big muscle nearest to the heart served as an appropriate metaphor for the ancient Greeks of what they meant by phroneo. It meant to bend your mind in a certain direction like you bend a muscle. So kata phroneo is to bend your mind to look down on something. So yes, scorn's not a bad translation. But all folks, religious and atheists, all agree that Jesus of Nazareth endured the most shame-inducing treatment the ancient world had to offer, and the ancient world was very good at shaming. But Jesus scorned that shame. He bent his mind to look down on it. Why? And how do we scorn the shame that so many want to press on us as his followers? Hebrews 12:2 says the answer to both of these questions is joy. But in Greek, joy, chara, is related to the word for grace, charis, which means favor, blessing, goodness, and by extension, an attractiveness, something appealing, something beautiful, the opposite of shame. So the writer of Hebrews, I think it's Paul, by the way, is intentionally connecting these two opposite ideas, shame and joy. Scorning by others instinctively creates shame in anyone. But Jesus inverts that idea. Jesus scorns the shame because of the joy. So much of the ancient world was explicitly built to avoid shame. So much of the modern world is about people-pleasing to avoid shame or rejection. We want likes. We want approval. We don't want shame. That makes sense because shame is one of the most damaging things that a person can endure. Psychologically, shame warps the mind. So we hide our shame constantly. Jesus was shamed in his death, shamed in his birth, but he scorned the shame. Ahiskones kataphronizas. He bent his mind away from that shame. He scorned it. He scorned the scorn, and he did so because of joy. So that's where I start my conversation with columnist, blogger, and author Ann Kennedy. But first, a little bit more about Ann. Ann Kennedy grew up in French-speaking West Africa and subsequently traveled all over the world. But now she is constantly surprised to wake up every morning in her gently fading small American town in upstate New York. Ann started as a blogger at Undercurrent of Hostility on Blogspot. Then she moved to Preventing Grace over at Patheos. And Ann now blogs at Demotivations with Ann on Substack. Ann has a BA from Cornell University and an MDiv from Virginia Theological Seminary. Her devotional book, Nailed It, is currently published by Square Halo Press. Well, Ann Kennedy, thank you so much for joining us on Bammerhab, and it's really an honor to have you here because I love your blogs. They really mean a lot to me, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun. I have enjoyed catching up on your podcast. I used some of the summer to It's been an enormously helpful resource. So thank you for podcasting and being on Substack too.
Oh, I appreciate that. Quick note, Anne had to make an unexpected schedule adjustment due to a family responsibility, and so this interview happened in a parked car. And that's why the sound quality isn't my normal, and that's why you can hear some road noise in the background occasionally. So, Anne, you were raised as a missionary kid and also a third culture kid. And that means, so anybody who doesn't know, third culture kid, if you're raised in the culture where you're from, your hometown, that's a first culture kid. If you're an immigrant and you move from one hometown to another and stay there, you're a second culture kid. Third culture kid is always moving. So, like a military brat or a missionary kid or anyone who's always moving and is raised that way, they're third culture kids. So, you're a missionary kid, and a lot of the missionary kids I know are either missionaries themselves or very angry
Yes.
atheists. So, any guesses as to why that is, or any relationship to shame or scorning shame, or?
Oh, I don't know if I could say definitively, but the verse that keeps coming around or has all week, like we have had more than enough contempt, but I feel like that's a good slogan.
Quick note. This citation is Psalm 123, verse 4. Our soul has had more than enough of the scorn of those who are at ease, the contempt of the proud. Yes, because I feel like it says that Jesus scorned the shame, and it's like that is a really needed thing in the church today because we are getting shame pressed on us from all sides, all angles. Evangelicals, secular, even some people like who should be brothers and sisters. I found like, they are still my brothers and sisters, but I found the ones that hurt the most is, okay, we're charging ahead and I got stabbed from behind. Okay, I didn't expect that. I don't have any armor behind me, but shame, prodigal son, obviously he's ashamed of his dad, runs away, and what brings him back is shame of like, I'm ashamed of eating these pig pods and hunger and desperation and shame brings him back. And he's willing to shame himself in front of his father of like, the only way forward is through it. He's like, okay, I'll endure a little shame. Not much. He's not really owning it much, but he's like, okay, I'll do a little less shame here of, I sinned, I own it. The shame is stripped off and he's given new clothing, not old stinky clothing. Yeah, it's interesting. Shame in ancient culture seems to be tied to clothing, old stinky rags or clothing. And I don't know what to do with that. That seems to just occur to me now. But
I love though. Did not think of the prodigal son, but that's exactly right. And I mean, I guess the sort of courageously for a minute being willing to taste the shame, as it were, to endure it, is ultimately the way that you can scorn it. You get rid of it. You go, goes away. You get joy, and then you do become kind of impervious to false shame. I think that's being a Christian is having the tools and the scriptures to sort through, to wend your way through what is proper, what ought I to be feeling. Did I do something bad?
yeah.
What, ought I to feel ashamed of myself right now? And then, you can get rid of it by repenting. Or is this wrong? Is somebody trying to make me feel a way that I shouldn't feel because I didn't do anything? And then that's on them. And then I can walk away from it as well. There's always a way out. The upsetting thing is so many, quote, Christians who always want to take that off the table. They don't want the cross because it's embarrassing and shameful. They want you to work harder and
do better.
Do better. Do the work.
Yes. Do the work.
I really hate that.
Right there with you. Because, I mean, it is like literally a works-based righteousness. It's like, almost like we have a thing about that. Do the work and then you'll be righteous.
Yeah.
I have no problem with doing work. I have no problem with being better, but it's the basis of righteousness.
Yeah.
I am a good person because I did the work. You are a bad person because you did not do the work. Right. Ergo, work is what saves us.
Right. Exactly.
But when we were talking about shame and scorning the shame, you had mentioned Ishbosheth. And I know from Hebrew, Ishbosheth is Ish is man and Bosheth means curse or shame, which means his real name was Ishbaal. So anytime you had a name Baal, the rabbis, the faithful rabbis, wouldn't write the name Baal. They would just write Bosheth. So his real name was Ishbaal, which means that Saul named his kid after Baal. And it's like, quick note, Ishbaal was Saul's royal heir, who was very briefly the second king of Israel until his coalition crumbled and he was assassinated by his own guard. So the king of Israel is naming his kids after Baal. That's a big thing. And, they're at that point, you're pretty far gone to name your kid after a different god.
Right. And I was actually thinking also of Mephibosheth
Yes.
because the names are quite similar. And we just
Oh,
finished,
yeah, Mephibosheth. That's what you're saying too. Yeah, Mephibosheth.
you had the same, it would have been Baal.
Mephibobal. Yeah, Mephibobal is the real name.
Right. He is dropped and disfigured. He can't walk. He's got this deformity.
Hmm.
And the difference between these two people in Saul's household, they both seem like children uh, of sadness,
Hmm.
of deconstruction.
Yes.
The results of people who didn't remember or never grasped what was really going on. And Mephibosheth ends up at David's table, at least for a while.
Right.
And Ishbosheth is murdered
Right.
and left, dead. And it's just over the last year, I guess, I've been thinking of the sort of turning on the word shame, the contempt, and the destruction of things, the spiritual ruin
Hmm.
of so much of what's going on. And the word shame is so difficult because, of course, our culture deals in shame,
Yes.
deep level.
The currency, and it's the main motivator and main controller.
But at the same time, what not admitting that it's doing that.
Right.
It will not, shame is always bad, of course. And yet it's the thing that everybody is, that's nourishing everybody.
Yeah.
And I just thought the image of those, that there would be in the name, that the biblical writers would take that word
Hmm.
and use it in the way that they did in these two names, has just been such an interesting, reading the news and thinking of that
Yeah.
is really.
Just the idea of a man of shame is like, yeah, that says, I keep on thinking of but the fathers have eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge of. Quick note, the citation here is Ezekiel 18:3. What do you people mean by quoting this proverb about the land of Israel? The parents eat sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. The previous generation has started this ball rolling, and then the momentum has just flown up. And yeah, shame is the main catalyst, but it's, live by the shame, die by the shame, where people, fat shaming is bad. Any shaming is bad. You add shaming to anything, and you have shamed the person for doing the shame to you. That shame is simply the currency of social media, really. Social media is built, it should be built not on shame, but on attention, because they talk of it as an attention economy. And I was just reading Dallas Willard. He was saying the first act of love is always the giving of attention, because love is actually attention. It's like what you focus your attention on. I mean, that's what worship is. When you focus your attention on something, you're giving love. If you focus your attention on a child, you're showing love. And shame seems to be like the antithesis of that. This thing of shame and attention are tied. And, we know we're in an attention economy, but I don't think we actually understand we're in a shame economy where social media is built on avoiding shame, on giving shame, on manufacturing and diverting shame around as like a useful tool. And it's not that new. I mean, if you look at Greeks, it was an honor shame culture. We've almost moved to an honor shame culture sort of thing, but in social media, where there's not really honor. Yeah.
Yeah, without
Yeah.
there's no honor, and you can't, so there's not very much that you can do to get honor.
Right.
But that's what everybody's trying to do all the time, is sort of wrest honor out of the clutches of other people
Right.
and give away shame. And I mean, I think about it so much because in our church we try to be really careful. We try to teach all the people who do ministry of any kind or communicate with each other. There's ways to communicate morally neutral things, like, we'd like to set up a new system in the kitchen for the arrangement of all the plates in the cupboard. So we're going to communicate this important decision. There's a way to do that that just makes everybody feel awful about themselves
Right.
if they did it wrong. How can you get people to communicate without shame, without a moral imperative that they're going to do it wrong from the get-go. It's really hard to do that in basic relationships. And yet at the same time, because everything is shame in the world,
Right.
being able to deal with the question of shame in the church, to be able to feel it and have somewhere to put
Right.
it and invite other people to say, to admit that they feel, what are they going to, it's impossible to bear that. There's nowhere to put it. It just, and it's mounting up. It's just this horrifying.
Right. It's an accumulation of, yeah.
And the only place to get rid of it is by admitting that it's there and going to the cross, which is so counterintuitive. It's
Right. And
really
the
hard.
author of Hebrews, the idea of like that shame and the cross are very intricately linked.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he links joy to shame too, that the answer to shame is joy. And I haven't processed that. I'm trying to figure out like how. I would feel like the answer to shame is, well, obviously the ancient answer was honor. Our answer is fame. The opposite of shame is fame. If you
Right.
have fame, then any shame should bounce off you because they're just haters, right?
Right.
So fame is the antidote to shame in our culture. Honor is the antidote to shame in ancient culture. But then the writer of Hebrews seems to be saying joy is the correct antidote to shame. And I'm thinking about that one. I'm praying about it. I'll have to ask God. I don't understand how it's the antidote, but that seems to be the biblical antidote to shame is joy. And that's how Jesus scorned shame. He didn't even, I guess scorn is like it doesn't bother him. It doesn't register. Obviously it registers at some human level, but it's not registering psychologically because I know a lot of psychologists basically say shame is the main motivator, main pain, main activator of almost all human decisions to avoid shame, to give shame, to use shame as a motivator.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know, like it is, joy is the product or the thing that you get when you grasp on to the shame of the cross.
Hmm.
When you, it's a little bit like the people who say the only way out is through. You can't pass it along to somebody else. You can't give it. If your inclination in avoiding shame is to give it to a person other than you, you do just perpetuate it. It goes on and on and on.
Hmm.
When you just stop and admit that that's, like if you're Mephibosheth and you can't walk
Hmm.
and you expect to die, and then you find out that you get to sit at the king's table in your disfigurement, basically, then what you have is joy. Like
Right.
and there's no way to run away from it. You try, but you can't. So you don't. That's the Christian picture, I think.
Hmm.
The cross.
So joy is the effect, not the antithesis.
Well, yeah, I mean it isn't achievable by hard work or
Right.
you can't gin up feelings of joy as a way of getting away from the shame, which is what I think I've tried to do in my life.
Right.
It's the
And I
opposite.
think that is a common thing of, joy is a marketing tool these days.
Right. If you buy another book that will teach you how to have joy,
Spark joy.
that's the person you throw away all your stuff, right? Am I
Right, yeah. Well,
okay?
Marie Kondo. If
Yeah.
it doesn't spark joy, trash it.
Well, and that's the problem is so like nothing sparks joy for me. So I'm just to throw everything I have away.
So you can be a minimalist. You can have all, well, you can declutter. That works.
Yeah, that's what everybody's still trying to do. I think that's what ends up being the evangelical movement. You didn't feel happy, you didn't feel joy
Right.
when you were in church because you didn't understand what was going on, probably. You just felt
Right. Or I feel like people get so embittered or there was a wound
hmm
and the wound either brings you closer to God or it pushes you away. And the wound, I feel like it's bitterness to me.
well, yeah, that's true. Bitterness is, but it's married to contempt
Yeah.
and real hatred for people
Yeah.
who love the church. So, but
Several of my pastors are now ex-evangelicals, old pastors, and one was really influential for me. And one, he was a pastor up in Boston, and then he ran for a Congress seat. And it's like he was always like, separating religion and politics. Religion and politics is like, dude, you're running for literal politics right now. And it's okay because it's not conservative, therefore it's not bad. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's very discouraging.
Right. But as a missionary kid, I was curious, how and when did you own your own faith?
Wow, that's a good question. I think I was one of those people who always knew Jesus from, I mean, there is not a conscious time in my life where I did not really palpably feel the presence of God day to day from when I was really tiny. I can't put a moment where I didn't know Jesus, I would say. And then I would say in college, I had a crisis of personal meaning. Maybe like I didn't doubt Jesus at all, but I didn't know what he wanted me to do. And so I spent my Easter holiday at Thésée in France sometime in college and talked to a nun there and spoke with her, and she set me on a good path at that point. And there wasn't, although my mother told me later, you were 5 years old when you asked Jesus into your heart. And I was like, really? Okay, okay.
See, I wrote mine down because growing up in a Christian family, it's like my sons are always learning about Jesus. And they ran up and they just asked me a question. It's like, well, you just have to pray and ask Jesus. And they did. And I was like, they're never going to remember this. But I wrote it down for them because for that reason, it's like it did happen. They were concerned it happened, but they don't remember. They're not going to remember. Like I happened for me when I was 6 too. I don't remember the day. I just remember images and what was going on and talking to my mom about it. It's like I remember I was 6. That's all I remember. So yeah, I don't think that's. I've had points of re-confirmation and rededication. I actually had a point where I was talking to an Anglican nun in California because I was trying to figure out what to do with my life after my filmmaking collapsed. And it was up in the mountains of San Ynez Mountains or Santa Barbara Mountains, I'm sorry. And I got bad directions from Google. So I was walking up a mountain that went to this gated like community. Thank God they didn't have like a shotgun. I was wandering around like this doesn't look like where a nun would live. This looks really fancy. I guess these nuns are doing really well. It was yeah, and the nun gave me really good, solid advice. She was took the pressure off for a young kid of like, oh, I got time.
The nun that I talked to very definitely told me that I should not be a nun. I don't know how she knew that, but God must have spoken to her and said, this person should not be a nun. And I'm very grateful now because, I got to get married and have children. But at the time, I thought I should definitely do this. So,
It feels like direction, right? At least it's like I have a decision and I know where I'm going. Yeah, and yeah,
right, exactly.
she must have figured out that like certain minds like decisions more than like I want to make it done. I want to be done.
Right.
So you're a mother of 6, and that's a huge amount of work. I know because I come from a family of 6 kids, and it's a definite calling. So in this day and age, I feel like a parent really has to have the skills of a missionary to protect their flock going out into a hostile world that doesn't believe what they do. So, where do you see the overlap between missionary work that your parents were doing and your work as a mom?
That's a great question that no one has ever asked me before. I think I would say that living up here in a place that is not home to me, or it is now, but when I first moved here, I felt like I was going to a mission field by coming to New York. It really struck me as because my parents moved from Mali in West Africa. Now they work in Kenya.
Hmm.
Kenya is really Christian.
Hmm.
It's really Anglican. It's really Christian. There's a lot of charismatics and
Yeah.
there's a lot of Pentecostalism, but the culture is sort of very Christian in many respects. Not fully, but more than here. And
Yeah,
when
I
we
was gonna
visited,
say, I think maybe New York needs more missionaries.
yes, I thought it was really strange. I was very disturbed that God did not want me to leave America again, that I was going to stay here and then to come to a place that was very post-Christian, where knowledge of God has very much evaporated very quickly. Like cultural knowledge of God is gone here. And then to raise children here in a foreign land was surprising to me, and was maybe it has been a little bit like me growing up in a foreign land amongst animists, people who practice African traditional religion. At least when we first got there, Islam hadn't really come in the way that it is now. People,
Was that more in the 90s or?
the 80s, we went to Mali in 1980. My parents were given a project in what was then called Upper Volta, but Burkina Faso.
Mm.
They went there, and they were there only 6 months when my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and they went back to the States. They lost it. The project was given away. Nobody expected them to come back. But a few years later, they were back on the field, and they were the first Wycliffe team to go into Mali.
Oh,
And
they're a
it was,
Wycliffe team. That's awesome.
yeah, so
Okay, yeah.
the Christian Missionary Alliance asked Wycliffe to come in and do Bible translation.
Hmm.
And so it was, the village was, they say, behind the grass. It was far from the main road. It was one of those old-fashioned walled villages, no outside contact really.
Right.
And so, you learn the language, you get to know people, you very slowly, it takes a lifetime to even begin to translate the scriptures.
Right.
And the work here was very much the same, although there were no walls, but the people in our church didn't know the scriptures, they didn't know Jesus, they didn't know the language. So the first task was to make the church Christian.
Hmm.
And then, and you raise children along with that. You bring your children along, and you hope that the church and the children become Christian at the same time, which did happen. So,
Well, John does always call his flock little children. He's like, little children do this, little children do that.
yes, exactly. That's very apt, because people that are just becoming Christian behave like little children. So
Sometimes people have been Christian for a while, still behave like little children.
that's
Yes,
true too.
yes.
That's true too.
But I see your point.
Yeah, so it has been a mission field, but our kids feel like this is their home.
Hmm.
They feel a proprietary interest, I guess, in the town,
Hmm.
which surprises me, and they would like to settle here and transform Binghamton into a Christian place again. I wish them luck.
Go for it. Yeah, sounds good. So, do you consider your blogging like your mission field or you feel like you went back into missionary work, obviously as a mother, you're in a different place from where you were raised, and do you feel blogging as a mission field, or do you feel like your blogging is more to equip and encourage the body of Christ to deal like your little children and you're raising and sort of giving motherly advice to the whole body as like an elder, or do you see it as both?
That's also a great question. I feel really foolish to say that I have never thought about my blogging in any real sense at all, other than that I started blogging in 2006 when the Episcopal Church stuff started to it was already in full-blown meltdown.
Right.
And my husband was asked by Greg Griffith to be a part of Stand Firm.
Hmm.
He went to a big meeting.
Hmm.
I was 1,000 months pregnant with our third child, and he had to leave right when I was pretty much due. I was
Ooh,
very stressed
yeah,
that he had to go away, and my mom came, and I just really didn't want to have this baby while he was gone, which I didn't. Praise the Lord.
that's good.
He got back in time. But I started blogging kind of as a coping mechanism. And because everybody was doing it back then, like,
Right.
Blogspot, and it was great. It was before social media kind of sucked up all the great commenting that happened on Blogspot back in the day. You had
Right.
relationships were being built amongst people in the comment boxes. And then,
They really were. And then what Twitter was considered micro blogging, right? So,
yeah, but
and then
really
it became its own thing.
kind of killed the relationships that had been developing. I think that Facebook and Twitter did a number on something that would have been really beautiful, I feel like. But so then I did it out of self-defense and just a way of coping, being a young mom and in an isolated situation. I did not have any friends up here
Mm.
for a long time. My mother would come for about 6 weeks every time I had a baby, but we didn't have any grandparent help.
Mm.
There were ladies from our church who adopted our kids and were hugely helpful. But on the whole, I was alone in a strange land as a young mother. And so, like many people, blogging became a way of connecting with other people,
Hmm.
just having some self-expression, I think, in a useful way that wasn't just got me out of myself. I read
Yeah.
books, things like that. And then Bart Gingrich invited me over to Pathos, and that was amazing. That was so fun.
Hmm.
But it was a little more serious, so I began to write and think more. I started to blog more days a week, and I wrote my book.
Quick note. The book Anne is referring to here is Nailed It from Square Halo Press. It's a yearly Bible guide with 365 readings for angry or worn out people. Link in the show notes.
And that was all before the evangelical movement. I think when that happened,
Hmm.
as people began to deconstruct, I do think my blogging tone, I wasn't writing just for myself anymore. I stopped just thinking, well, I'm just doing this for me. This is my treat at the end of the
Right.
day. And I got a real bee in my bonnet, which has angered a lot of people, trying to defend the church
Hmm.
from people who had once professed to love her
Right.
and who had been, many of them, more spiritually minded than I was, or I thought anyway. A lot of my friends from high school, from boarding school, have deconstructed.
Right. Yeah.
I'm definitely a minority as a Christian, and it's so strange because when I was in school, I was kind of the problem person. I didn't ever get in trouble, but I had a bad attitude, and nobody could tell that I was a Christian at all. And I know a lot of the faculty and staff prayed for me all the time because they were afraid I was unregenerate.
Deconstructing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
early. Now, many of them read me, and their kids have left the faith. And so I get messages from people who, like dorm staff and
Mm.
teachers to
Mm.
say, thank you for writing. And, but I hadn't thought of the mission field. I feel like it's like a rear guard action when
Mm.
an army comes against you and you weren't prepared and you're running around trying to get your, stuff together
Right.
to make a defense. And I don't know if it's going well, but I just really,
I'm enjoying it. I feel like it's going very well.
oh, good. Okay. I mean, I can't just anymore just write about, mothering, which is what I did for ages. I was a mommy blogger, as they say.
Hmm.
Now I just feel like I've got to talk about Jesus every day because everybody's losing their minds, and we can't talk about, fun things if we don't have
If we
the
don't
only
have
things that
like,
matter.
yeah, if we don't have a branch to sit on, we can't really have a a nest.
Right, exactly. So, but I like the idea of a mission field. I think that's true. It's like the post mission field. What is it when people were Christian and they had a common and a shared vision of what was good in the world, and then all of those people reject it, or a good number, and decide that you, because you stayed in one place and didn't change your mind, are actually very wicked.
I keep on getting back, and I get a lot out of Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel, because that's a similar thing of like, here's what the nation was founded on. Here's what we say. I'm sure they would have said we're still the nation of David. That's still kind of in their DNA, but they've rejected all of it. And that's what Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel, and they're like rebuking and coaxing, and it's like, come on, guys, come on, guys. That's what it feels like, a similar period of like, you guys have to listen up. You're not listening. You're going with the newest trends. It's pretty clear from Jeremiah that he got called lots of names and people were very mean to him at the top levels. Quick note, citation is Jeremiah 28. So the word of the Lord has brought me insult and reproach all day long. So I'm curious, since you have your MDiv and you went to Cornell, so how have your degrees helped you Do you feel like sort of like Paul's Roman citizenship, or it gives you access to places? I found sometimes, when I was a homeschool kid and being taken very lightly as like, well, now I have a degree and everybody has to listen to me. It gives access to places, but I'm still the same person. And where have your degrees really failed you? I know I got pulled in the wrong direction for decades because of my degrees. And it's like, it is talk about shame and honor. Academics and academia runs through shame and honor a lot.
I think the way that my degrees failed me, my BA and my MDiv, is that it did not help me as a homeschooler. I I was not actually that well educated. I got a pretty good education in my high school boarding, Christian or conservative Baptist boarding school,
Hmm.
and it was pretty rigorous. And I was a B student, so I got as good an education as you can. I'm actually a terrible student, but I came out with a pretty solid foundation. Yeah, so then I landed at Cornell, and I did a comparative literature degree, which is technically useless.
That's pretty much what I had. I agree.
Yeah. I did French, so I read a ton of deconstructionist books in
Uh,
English and in French.
Derrida.
Yeah, Derrida, and I think it was really great because I was exposed to everything before the general population.
Right.
And I was a real Christian in college. So I started to sort through it then. It was disorienting intellectually for sure, but I wasn't really spiritually disoriented. But when I went to seminary, that was awful. It was good.
Seminary was the greatest challenge to your faith then?
I believed in God. I wasn't like shaken in my faith. I was just so appalled.
Disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was good though, because Matt and I were well equipped to come into a very combative situation up here and
Okay.
immediately be at odds with all the people up in the Episcopal Church
Yeah.
here. And we didn't have anything to lose because, we had already had a pretty miserable time and everybody hated us anyway down there. So
Right.
it was
So
um
you'd gotten training in the small battleground.
it was very useful for that. I mean, we were really grateful. We just never wavered. We never didn't know what to do in the church because we had seen what happens when you don't believe in God and you won't let go of your job as a church, as a cleric. So,
That always surprised me. In English school, we had like an Anglican vicar would come over and he'd speak to us. Everybody hated it because we had to stand at attention for like 15 minutes and none of them wanted to listen. But he would openly say he didn't believe in God at all. It was basically, this is a job and I'm taking money. It's like, so points for honesty, but also, why the heck do we have to keep doing this?
yeah,
That was shocked me that he was just so open. This was in 1995.
yeah,
He's just like, yeah, God doesn't exist. But you know what is beautiful? Stars. I was
yeah.
like, okay.
That's tragic. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
But
it's
it's the
really
system is
tragic.
still set up that the vicar was supposed to come and give religious education.
Yeah.
And so they just keep doing it as like the vicar doesn't believe in God.
Right, exactly. No, and that's really discouraging if you go to a place to learn more about the Bible and God and theology, and then you just get the whole thing deconstructed. So it has taken years for me to put the Bible
Yeah.
together. Fortunately, my husband is a fantastic preacher, and he has done that systematically for me personally. Just
And
listening
he's
to.
got his own podcast. You want to do the shout out so we can do a shout out here?
Oh well, he's on Stand Firm. Is that what you
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, he's
Yes,
on Stand Firm and he has
the
uh
Cramner Fellowship.
right. So I'll
Yes,
include a link to that.
everybody should check that
Right.
out.
I felt almost, I mean, I'm proud patriot and I like my country, even though I'm a military brat and I moved all around. But I was sort of ashamed in that I have a friend, he came from Africa, came as a Christian, studied in England, moved to become a professor in the United States, lost his faith here. He was a Christian in Africa. He was a Christian even in England. And I knew his wife, who was, and his family, who like came here, lost his faith here, came to America to lose his faith. It was like, oh, that's not what you want to see. It's like, I was just sort of ashamed. We have been sending the gospel overseas, and people expect, since the missionaries are coming from America, that when they come here, then they're in home base of I don't have to be on guard. It's like, oh no, you have to be more on guard here, unfortunately. And Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. Just grieving, I guess.
The missionaries who I grew when I was a child who came back to the States came back to a world that had abandoned them.
Hmm.
So they went away and they served the Lord in places all over the world. And then when they came home, America had already forfeited what they had gone away to give. And
Right.
so they come back as double strangers because they've been gone so long, but also the world doesn't accept even what they did. So I think it's really tragic what's happened to the Anglican world, but in the United States, just to Christianity in general.
Yeah, and I think that ties in with what Peter was saying in First Peter 2:11, tying it into three CKs of we're all three CKs as Christians in a certain sense, because he calls us foreigners and strangers on this earth, which is another way of saying a three CK of you like you're not quite home yet. You have bases, you have outlets, you have places that you're working from and familiar, but you're not quite home. And so in one real sense, it's I think the one place that a 3CK has a leg up of like, yeah, I've lived this. And it's really far more disorienting, I think, if your home and your life are changing around you, and this was your anchor of my church was like this, and that you don't know what to do. You don't know, like you said, being in your MDiv, like, I know what this feels like. Whereas if you've never been trained, and Peter's trying to warn all these Christians of you guys don't get too comfortable because it's your security isn't here.
Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
a citizen.
Well, in those days, they're like, you're literally not a citizen, but even when you are, it's like you're not fully a citizen. That's not where your identity is.
Yeah, an
Right.
alien resident or a, I don't know, my mother always has to get, whenever they go to Kenya now, they get, so they have to get a special visa, but dependent spouse, alien resident is a good title to have just in
As a
life in
Christian, yeah,
general.
we all are alien residents here as our
Yeah.
identity. This is not our true home. I mean, we all know that, but it feels different to feel that.
Right. It's one thing to have cognitive knowledge, but it's another thing for it to
Mm,
enter the spirit
hmm.
and accept it and not feel the shame and the
Right,
contempt of your neighbors for
right,
not being on the same page and just being able to be happy in with it. It's not it's the way that it's supposed to be. It's not
right. And then we're closer to the early church.
right. It's interesting that you said about clothes because one thing with my children as they've gone out into the world more, they have deliberately dressed in a manner that is very contrary to
Mm,
everything around them. Like my son wears a suit all the time, except his Chipotle job, but to class, he wears a suit. He's the only one. And
I wish he would wear a suit to Chipotle. That would be awesome. Conversation
if he
starter.
put his Chipotle shirt over his tie,
Yeah, exactly.
it's so hot though. And no, they just deliberately dress in a way that sets them apart. And I think that really helps. I mean, that's why the people of Israel were supposed to dress differently
Right.
to remind themselves of the presence of God all the time. And we don't
Hmm.
have a distinctive dress. I think that's one
Hmm.
thing that's hard to be an alien person is when you look and sound like everybody else, is what happened to me when I came back to the States. I spoke English and I could dress in a way that was exactly like everyone else. But because my whole sort of internal structure, thought processes were not as of everybody else, I often made cultural blunders and I got less forgiveness for that because I looked,
You look the same. Yeah.
yeah. And I think
Right.
Christians would do well to like dress in a way that also gets them some forgiveness from the world. People, when you dress in a certain way, people will be kinder to you, I think.
Hmm.
And it's a good reminder to yourself that you're
I guess because there's no disjointed of like, wait, you're one of us and you're not believing like us, or like, oh, you're not even one of us.
right.
So, yeah,
And then you have to be kind.
yeah. Then you have to represent yourself well.
Right.
All right. So we're running out of time. I don't want to keep you too long. Some quick questions just to finish up here. What's your favorite book other than the Bible
Let me think.
and your own book? You can't mention your own book.
Right. My own book's not my favorite book, but it should be everybody
Everybody else's
else's.
favorite book. That's right.
The book that I reread recently that I just love and I commend to everyone is The Towers of Trebizond.
Oh,
I just love that
okay.
book. It's like deeply Anglican to its core, but it's also the person who gave it to me. It was the book that converted her to Christianity.
Oh, okay.
It's a very sideways way in, and I just commend it to the world.
Past Watchful Dragons.
Yes, exactly.
What is your favorite movie?
I'm not much of a movie person, but I really do love Enchanted April.
Okay.
Again, for the power of conversion.
hmm Actually, I don't know Enchanted April. What is Enchanted April?
It's a movie adaptation of the book, and it's for women in England who are sad and angry, and it's raining, and they have horrible husbands, and then they find a castle in Italy, and they rent between the four of them, and all of their problems are solved by going on holiday.
Going to Italy.
Yes, exactly. It's my dream.
That's nice. Have you seen that SNL where there's like a guy who's a travel thing and he said, "So everybody, Italy is very beautiful, but when you go there, you're gonna be the same person you are here. I just want you to know that. Beautiful food, but you're still there, the person you are here." So maybe they watched Enchanted
It's the
April.
opposite of Enchanted April because they all become different people.
Oh, so Italy fixed it.
Scenery.
There
Yeah.
you go. And what is your favorite tree?
Oh, well, my specific favorite tree is the tree outside of my house. That
Oh,
is,
what type of tree is it?
it's a maple tree. It's
Oh,
just huge and it's turning right now, and it's very tall and tons of leaves.
uh,
But
that's
probably,
the one benefit to upstate New York. You get some beautiful colors. Yeah.
probably like spiritually, my favorite tree would be the baobab tree. Though
Oh, okay.
we don't have those here, so
No, and you want to explain what a baobab tree is?
it's a tree in Africa where it looks like the roots are coming up into the sky, and
Oh,
so it looks like an upside down tree, and it's huge. They can grow to be really massive, and they're just so interesting and representative of the world.
I like that. And final question, if you could go to and name your favorite place, it doesn't have to be a city per se, or it could be a type of place. Where is your favorite place that you find most inspiring?
Well, I mean, I would always go home to Mali if I could, which is not a thing right now because it's kind of overrun by political violence and
Mm.
Islamic warfare. But I would go to Mali in a heartbeat. But secondarily, I would go to Paris for them to eat cheese.
Not
Spiritual.
Italy in a castle?
Well, that would be good too. But yeah, that would be the cheese of France calls to my soul continually.
That sounds good. Awesome. Well, and it was a pleasure talking with you, and I wish you all blessings on the blog, Demotivations with Ann. Everybody who is on Substack or is not on Substack, get on Substack, check it out. It has been a real encouragement. You said it started as a rear guard, but I feel like it's actually more of a shield. It helps you go forward. It really does gird, and I recommend it to lots of other Christians of just this is a amazing encouragement and a faith builder as we're instructed to do. So thank you so much for that, Anne.
Thank you. That's very kind. I'm glad that it's helpful and glad that something that I enjoy doing and that I'm able to do is useful. That Venn diagram doesn't always work out. Really grateful to be here with you today.
Thank you once again, Anne, for that wonderful interview. And as always, I hope you'll join me again on the next episode and beyond. In the meantime, go dig a little bit deeper into the Word. And remember, in Christ, in Him, the Lord has set us free, and He's put our feet into a broad and spacious place. Bamerhab, a huge word just waiting to be explored. So let's go exploring. If you like what you heard and you get a chance, please rate, like, and subscribe, or share this episode with your friends. For more information about Bamerhab, go to www.sdgmorgan.com or visit the Bamerhab Substack page. A special thanks to my friend Aaron Woodard for the graphic design of the show. Also, don't forget to check out this episode's show notes below.